All right, so why don't we start with the right side of the room, because I think you got there first.
All right. I guess my first question, or my only question, was will you have dogs in the game, or would you consider adding that after launch?
Having what?
Dogs.
Dogs. There's so many facetious answers to that one. I was heading down the food line. Hey, I have a dog. She's very cute.
He's English, guys, you know.
Yeah. And my daughter goes to the UGA, dogs, anyway, so many possible jokes. No.
All right.
That was easy. You got a stupid answer, but it was easy.
All right, I have two questions. The first one, you saw around the time...
1 second.
Just try to keep the volume on this down a little bit. You saw around that time a lot of soldiers kind of took liberties, I'd say, with their uniforms. So are we going to see, even if it's minor, any form of soldier customization?
We've considered it. We're playing around with it. More on that soon.
And will I be able to play Ride of the Valkyries out of my helicopter?
There's actually
I'm not going to say no.
Yeah.
Let's wait and see.
Yeah, I mean, this is the whole music thing. It's kind of one of those fun things for us at the moment because there's so many obvious things that we could do and should do, but then you get into the whole insanity that is trying to license music from recent times. We were trying to don't laugh, but we were trying to license Ride the Valkyries for this presentation, and the stupidity you get into about how you can use bits of music and things. And yes, we did actually ask and inquire sensibly about. This is you wanted live gameplay. That's what Sturt's up to in the background here, just to prove that helicopters do all sorts of strange things. Yeah, we did actually ask about Paint It Black. The answer that came back initially was so ludicrously high just to go and have lunch before we could start discussing it that we just went, no, it's going to cost more than the whole game to make. So no, it's not happening.
All right, thank you.
But sorry, there's another part of that, which is radios in the world. Is that
yes. So we do actually have some fixed musical radios in certain maps, which you'll be able to turn on and off as you go to them, that will play music, licensed tracks. In terms of playing it from helicopters, well, that's not something that's currently there, but maybe.
And I think it's quite impressive that he's actually talking about that stuff and flying a Cobra at the same time. This may be proving that it's not actually on rails.
You might recognize some of the locations from the trailer. This is Song Bay, our first supremacy map that is still coming online. So you'll see some bugs and issues because it's not fully complete yet. But
I'll try not to fly through any mountains or trees.
Yes.
I'll also try not to crash because that's embarrassing. There's no enemies in this map. I'm just flying it around.
All right, do you want to take a question from the other side?
Yeah, sure. So back when the M16 was, I guess, first released to U.S. troops, people were complaining about the 5.56 round, and they were like, oh, this is a terrible round. It's not going to go through jungle leaves. So my question is, will the ballistics model in the game account for shooting through vegetation? Is there a difference between shooting some guy, right in front of me or behind a bunch of leaves?
Some vegetation is the straight answer. I mean, calculating every leaf on the planet would get insane, and you probably need a cray to run it. As with other games that we've done in the past, yeah, I mean, trees and the solid stuff like that, big stands of bushes and so on, will be probably impenetrable. Although, of course, we'll talk about bullet penetration. And yes, the bullet penetration between the AK and the M16 is different. Yeah. The M16 round, for those who aren't aware, is a much lighter round. The AK is a big, powerful round. Got a lot more kinetic energy behind it. So penetration will take that into account. Every single palm leaf, no.
All right, thanks.
Yeah, I was curious, considering how the large sizes of these maps and things of that nature, I was actually kind of curious, was there anything that has been implemented or yet to be implemented that increases locomotion for ground infantry, bikes or jeeps or something of that nature?
You're asking about vehicles, particularly, or?
Yeah.
We don't have any plans for ground vehicles at the moment, partly because if you look at the Vietnam War, I think the sort of total of tank-on-tank engagements is about 0.
I think there's 1, 2 if you're really pushing it.
Yeah, in the real world. So we thought about the the 113. We'll look at that stuff. Don't walk into the rotor. We said live gameplay. Walking into the tail rotor hurts, as suitably demonstrated. What did you?
That was deliberate.
Oh, right. Yes. Please don't try that at home or at any airfield.
Another thing too is lane vehicles like Jeeps and stuff. Usually they just get used in a really kind of comical way. People crash them into things, jump them off of hills, ramps, or whatever, crash them into houses. I mean, it kind of takes the immersion out of the game and just kind of turns into Battlefield at that point.
Yeah, I mean, we kind of felt. I mean, we'll look at vehicles again once the game's launched and see how people are playing. Our take on it at the moment is that once you've got helicopters in, a ground vehicle's really going to add anything that the helicopters wouldn't. So,
Thanks.
Thanks.
So you guys had talked about asymmetrical game design. When you're including things like helicopters and bigger maps, how has that affected your map design?
How does that affect our map design?
Well, I mean, the Vietnamese do have like the tunnel networks. I mean, I guess some of the maps have punji sticks and stuff like that. They're pre-placed. The Americans can't run through because they'll just get stabbed and die. There's, in Song Bay, for instance, there's landing zones for the Americans, big clearings, stuff like that. So it helps them have areas that are out of the way. They're not directly in the middle of combat or the objectives where the helicopters can land. The tunnel networks can be allowed so the Vietnamese can travel pretty sneakily around the map, underground and whatnot, pop up in unexpected places, hide from artillery or napalm, spooky, whatever. So it's.
But yes, it's when we first started talking about helicopters. Yeah, it's one of those things we had to think about because you're dealing with the fact that if you've played RO2 or Rising, RO2 particularly with things like half tracks, you can cover a lot of ground very quickly, and we had to think about, this is where the supremacy game type came from, where you're looking at, you're actually stringing together objectives, and both teams have got the opportunity to get behind the other team. You can get pile a whole squad into a Huey, you're going to get behind them, and it's thinking about, it does put a different dynamic on the map design, and to be honest, we're still exploring that. We think we're in a very good place with that, but that's again where the beta will come into it.
Yeah, we had a couple of very early supremacy prototype maps, like Song Bay is our first one that really sort of started coming online as far as it has so far, but a lot of the earlier ones were more narrow based and similar to our territory, because that's what we're used to, and we're like, let's just enhance territory and add this in, and it's like, no, we need this to be wider, we need more space, we need the objectives spread out. So it's quickly taught us, as we've been iterating, that we just need more room to play around in as we have these big ways, not just as the Hueys to move around, but the traps and the spawn tunnels as well, because you need to give players a place to come in from unexpected areas, or it's not really that useful as a tool.
As a result, have you noticed any parallels with some of your competitors in their map design, like Battlefield or something, or is it still pretty Red Orchestra, just a little bit bigger?
I like to think that it's still very much Red Orchestra, just a bit bigger, and actually with a bit more tactics involved.
Just realized what he's done. That'll teach you to show off.
The way Supremacy works is not exactly how if you come from the Battlefield world, it has parallels, but it's different, and we like to feel there are more choices and more tactics involved with how the map plays out, and it's designed purposely to be that way. So we think it is much closer to those who are used to the Red Orchestra franchise, and they'll feel right at home jumping into Supremacy.
Yeah, I mean, it still feels like a Red Orchestra game. I mean, bullets are very lethal. People are dying, screaming on left and right. Artillery's exploding everywhere. Like it's a madhouse.
And sadly, I believe the enforcers are telling us it's time and that we have to go.
Do we have time for one more question?
Thank you.
No, but we are glad to hang around outside a little bit and talk with everybody, so
we do need to quickly vote on what we thought the most interesting question was.
Yes, we have hats.
Go on. What do we think it was?
Hey, I wasn't listening. I was.
I like the
busy crashing.
I liked the map design question.
Yeah, that was a good one.
I thought that was an interesting question.
Map design question. Who was that? Which would you prefer? You can have the heavyweight US helmet.
Yeah, I'll take the US.
At least means I haven't got to carry the thing home. Congratulations. Now, we do have a Vietnamese helmet.
Yes. So,
Who do we think that goes to? Dogs.
dogs?
Who said dogs?
There you go. You can use that to protect your dog from becoming food.
Guys, thanks very much for coming. We really appreciate it.
Grandpa was in the war. I don't think he'd want me.
Okay. Thanks very much for coming. It was very kind of you. We'll be here if you want to ask any more questions.